Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me here. You have an incredible program. I attend a lot of events through my years, and I got to tell you, this is very powerful. Congratulations on LiUNA and the caliber of knowledge and commitment to the things that you're trying to achieve. Very, very impressive. I was fortunate to get exposed to LiUNA when we lived in Minnesota. I was assigned to help out with the Enbridge Energy Line 3 project in the northern part of the state. And Kevin Pranis, some of you may know him, he's up in Minnesota, introduced me to LiUNA. I went to some of your training programs, got to meet some of the people that were working on the line. And it was very eye-opening for me. And since then, built a relationship with Aaron in Washington, D.C. And here I am. Thank you very much, Aubrey, for the introduction. So today I'm going to focus a little bit about the Hispanic community and what it means for us, and everything that you've heard today, not just from Robert, but from the Senator and some of your incredible speakers that you've had today. But Hispanics in Energy is a project that was created about 12 years ago at the urging of utility commissioners. They came to me and they said, Jose, we have an American Association of Blacks in Energy, and they've done wonderful things to prepare Black community members to enter the energy space. We ought to do something similar with the Latinos. And so I thought about it, and after a year I agreed to launch this thing. It's a nonprofit, and obviously it's to be very active with the Chambers of Commerce. I dropped all of that to focus on developing this project. And so what you see today is basically a part of an annual report, and I brought my great assistant, my 13-year-old son, who's got some copies for those of you who would like to get a copy of this document. It's actually pretty good, but it gives you a pretty good synopsis of what we've done across the country. Now, before I get into it, let me tell you a little bit about the community. So Hispanics are actually a community that represents every ethnic group. In fact, most people don't know that Hispanics are 87% white, but we're also Native American, we're also African American, we're also Asian. And so in fact, I myself, I did my little history on my ancestors, and I'm 67% Native American, and then like 20% European, a real mix of Europe, even Finnish. And then, but I'm also 2 parts Indian from India, 3 parts from China, 1 part from Japan, 2 parts from Africa, and so I'm a real mutt. And so, yeah, and so, but that's your typical Latinos. We're not, like, oh man, that's all they are, or this. No, it's really everybody. What makes them unique is their language and their culture. And so, the government tracks that group. It happens to be the largest group in America, and its numbers at around 65 million now, according to the U.S. Census, or about 20% of the population. If you look at the trend of what's going on with that population, it's growing significantly. In fact, the census predicts that by the year 2060, 30% of Americans will be Hispanic. Now, if you can just imagine, what does that mean for U.S. senators, for example? What if you had 30 U.S. senators in Washington, D.C.? What are the implications there? I mean, you could have a whole different view of what it means. For example, Hispanics tend to be more family-oriented, they're more patriotic, they shun welfare, and they're incredible workers, especially in your industry. And so it's really an interesting dynamic to see what would happen in the future as a result of this increasing population. Another key evidence of the growth that's going on, since we're looking at workforce, is that 25% of the K-12 students today in America are Hispanic. So it just goes to show that if you predict that out 10 years, and we're talking about some of these projects that are going to be around for a long time, where are your workers going to come from? And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we do. So in this booklet, you'll find that our leader, our chairman, is Joe Dominguez. He's the CEO for Constellation Energy. And that company owns about 25 of the country's nuclear power plants. And they just acquired another one in Houston. They paid like $1.7 billion for like 45% interest from NRG. So Joe Dominguez is our chairman. He's very active with us. We engage quite a bit at the national level. And he's very, very much in support of some of the things that we do. This next page talks a little bit about these demographics that I mentioned earlier, and it gives a little bit more details about what goes on in the energy space. We track about 2,700 energy companies. We've discovered that even though we're 20% of the population, we only have 12 of those 2,700 energy companies that has Hispanic CEOs. So we have a long way to go. When we got started, there were none. And then the first ones that we started to see get appointed were in California. Now there are some around the country. We have 2 Hispanic women that run energy companies. Our board is made up of people from around the country. It used to be pretty tilted in California, which is where it got started, but now it's pretty balanced around the country. And so we started with 4 people, organized this thing, and it's grown to about 11,000 across the country. So our mission is real simple. How do we take these 20%, 65 million people and get them engaged into energy? And this is where it gets really cold between LiUNA and Hispanics in Energy. Because as I was talking to Erin in Washington, D.C., she was telling me, Jose, we're having a natural increase of Hispanics coming into LiUNA, and then the rank and file are now electing some of the leadership. And it's interesting because we observe in the demographic that a lot of the farm workers, due to mechanization, are shifting out. So we see them in the shale place. We see them in the Permian Basin. We see them in Bakersfield. The shale plays in there. We also see them in the shale place up in the Dakotas. And so it's really interesting. And unlike other communities, these folks will actually get up and move to go and get a good job somewhere. And the pay that is offered in this area is really incredible. It's really good. So within that effort to try to get them integrated, we focus on corporate governance, the C-suite, business opportunities, workforce, and other areas. So some of the strategies that we employ is, as I mentioned, Hispanic business is a big one. So we have a memorandum of understanding with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and they represent 278 chambers of commerce around the country. In fact, if you look at the economic growth of the country, if you track it back 10 years, and you see, okay, so where is all this growth coming from? It's coming from this part of the population. They come out and they open their little businesses and their taco stands or whatever, but they get into business, and so it's flourishing. And so if you see the development of the economic growth in this country, a big part of it is coming because of the growth of this population. And so workforce is a key element. On the next page, we did a partnership with the Arizona Corporation Commission, and they have basically worked with the utilities in that state, APS, Tucson Energy, and others, to take some of these ideas and work with these companies to get them encouraged to look into coming up with some solutions. The other one that's very key to us, and this is very important for you folks, is the one dealing with our MOU and the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. And our dear friends from the National Laboratory, I was taking a look at all the partnerships and the groups that they deal with, and guess who's not in there? And so that's very typical. I'm not sure why that happens, but we always have to, stand up and say, hey, you guys, you've got 573 Hispanic serving institutions in America that are educating 3.5 million Latino kids, Hispanic kids every year. And yet we pay very little attention to that incredible group of folks that are potential employees in the energy sector. And so we definitely want to be part of your advisory group and point you in the way that you can connect with these Hispanic serving institutions. But if you look at your areas, you will find that they're an incredible resource, especially the community colleges. For those of you that may be strained in resources with respect to your training and the opportunities, the equipment, the access to the students. In some states, like in California, we see the community colleges with lots of students in there, but because of the apprenticeship programs and the requirements for placement through the unions don't take those students. And so there's opportunities to work together, because at the end of the day, it'll grow your membership, and it'll also provide the trained workforce that you need. And so this group, HACU, is a really key group. They're based out of San Antonio, and they have schools throughout the country. And they have some of the better schools for engineering, both electrical engineering and mechanical engineering, that are actually based out of Puerto Rico. And we have an event with those folks next week with Secretary Granholm in San Juan. She's announcing the $1 billion solar investment that they're doing on the island to try to deal with its energy resiliency issues. Because every time that Puerto Rico gets hit by a hurricane, they have to redo their energy system. It's really a challenge over there. So, but they have some of the best schools. And so we're trying to encourage kids in the mainland to maybe consider going to school over there, because it costs 30% of what it costs you here to get the same degree. And they're top-notch schools, because the utilities tell us they like recruiting engineers from there. But the cool thing about it is that when they get back to the mainland, they at least know how to dance some good salsa. And so we also get involved with executive placement. We were involved in the placement of the first general manager of CPS Energy in San Antonio. We work with the municipalities. Again, another area of a lot of opportunities. The report lists some of the things that we've done last year. And we also had an energy summit at API in Washington, D.C. We collaborate with our members in Congress and focus on those same issues that we talked about earlier. We also recognize our Hispanic utility commissioners. See, I'm not sure I'm keeping up with this thing. Let's see here. Well, it started somehow. Anyway, but take a copy of the report. Josh has the copies there for you if you're interested in taking a look at it. This coming year, we have some activities in California, November, along with the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and I will reach out to LiUNA to make sure that you guys are involved in that. That one's going to be focused on hydrogen energy. Last year, the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, appointed me to the National Petroleum Council, and I think I'm the first Mexican-American member of that council. They've been around since 1943, and so that group does studies for the Secretary, and one of the studies that it's working on is the hydrogen energy development, which is fascinating. So there's like 100 people or so. MIT is part of the study group, and the information that they're gathering is really incredible. So talk about the future, man. So the idea is that, we drive gasoline cars today. Well, just imagine a time maybe in the next 10, 15 years where 20% of the folks will be driving on hydrogen gas versus hydrogen gasoline. And the plan is to take some of these refineries and modify them, which is going to be a lot of work for LiUNA. There'll be new pipelines, there'll be new structures, but it's going to create incredible opportunities for jobs and for basically a new industry. Right now, hydrogen gas, if you were to put it in your car, is going to cost you about $16 a gallon. Well, the goal is to come up with a technology to reduce that to about $1.50 to $2. And so, and the stuff that they're developing is really fascinating. Now, the Department of Energy and the Biden administration are making huge investments in hydrogen energy, and they are going through a review process right now for what they call hydrogen hub zones. And Colorado has got a proposal, I believe I forget how many proposals around the country. But they're very interesting proposals, and if you're interested in looking at that, you can go to the Department of Energy's website and pull that information down. But it really is fascinating for those of you that like to see what's going to happen in the future, and then how can you contribute to that objective. It really is a wonderful opportunity. So, but hydrogen seems to be a good investment for not only your career, but for maybe pointing your family in that direction. There's going to mean more growth in the energy industry, so we calculate that it'll probably develop into a $1.5 trillion sector into maybe 20, 30 years from now. So the potential is really incredible, and it's not just for transportation, but it's manufacturing, it's for heating, housing, residential stuff, it's for airplanes. I mean, it really is fascinating what's going on in that space. The proposals, once they get announced, I think that they're going to do some initial announcements around the fall, and their goal is to try to get these things up and running by December. Then in January, that's when they're going to begin issuing the first checks. Now, if you take the totality of the public and private investments, you're talking about quite a bit of money, close to $50 billion. And so the opportunity is just golden. So LiUNA, you really are in the right spot right now. We are happy to be your partners. We stand out here alongside you to play a contributing role to what your leadership is trying to get done. And so we really support what you guys are doing, and thank you very much for this opportunity, for letting me share our perspectives with you.
Thank you, Jose, for your partnership, dedication, and leadership.
Oh, thank you.
And our Vice President Bob Abbott presenting you with a LiUNA hard hat in appreciation. Thanks again, Jose.